Good morning, everybody. It's Kula Dula from Raw Stocks. We have another edition of our pre-market prep, and today is an interesting read. And I think you're going to want to stay tuned to it and listen to the full thing because there are some major pivot points today that we need to be monitoring. So thanks for tuning in, and want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors, Black Box Stocks and Gamma Edge. Without those guys, we would not be able to provide this data to you every single day. So shout out to them. So go make sure you support them with the links in our bios and description, wherever you find this on social media. Yeah. All right. So I've just got the data this morning. Data was, I guess you could say bullish. Okay. So durable goods came in, backwards, but not as bad as expected. You can see that we've had multiple retractions here in regards to the durable goods, with the exception of one here where it really rocketed. This, to me, had to do with the tariff scare, right? But people front loading. And I think that's a big part of why we saw GDP come in high, is because of this right here. But we're going to get a new GDP print on Thursday. That's going to change everything. So this is good. Take note that at 9 o'clock, we have consumer confidence come in, as well as the Richmond Manufacturing Index. That's going to print on about 9 o'clock, 30 minutes after open. All right. Tomorrow, really nothing. And Thursday, you need to focus on GDP. So if you're looking for big moves, positioning wise, it needs to be Thursday or Friday that you need to have that kind of established. Okay. Okay. So key levels for SPX today. Clearly, you need to be using Friday's open, high, and low, and then use yesterday's low as a pivot here. Okay. And that's going to be supported by data, and you're going to see that here in just 1 second. So a little bit of an inside day yesterday. Tesla had a nice little boost to the top of our range that we talked about. Nice little kick off our daily 4, and looking to see this thing trying to drive higher. But we're thinking that the gas may run out here. We're going to see if this thing wants to stall out, maybe retest some highs. Watch this level here near 340, potentially get rechecked today before maybe making that attempt back up towards 350. We're going to get into that on the data. Nvidia, it was an interesting little day yesterday. It did get its launch off of that 175, 176 area we're looking for, and it found a bounce and made its way all the way up to 182 before settling back below 180 on the close. So today we're opening up above that. So what exactly does that mean? Well, stay tuned. We're going to get into that as well. All right, let's get into the data. Let's pull up SPX here. I want to go over I don't think I have it in here. Overnight low. Okay. This was our open. This is our overnight high. And this is our overnight low. So 64.15 roughly, right? This is pretty close to where we're at. And we're just kind of settling in this little range here. And you're going to see why in that range right there. So if you take a look at this, let's dial this out. So 64.15 puts us really close towards our initial breakout candle here, right? So is this a retest before trying to make that move up? Well, we're gonna see. All right, enough bait. Let's get right into it. Shout out to Gamma Edge here. You guys can try your free trial with the link in my bio. It's 14 days to get access to this data as well. To understand it, it's going to take you a little bit. So you get 14 days free trial with those guys. It's a fantastic deal. So make sure you click the link in the bio. Show them a little love. All right, so 6440, we're put dominated gamma conditions today. Full complex still remains call dominated with the target at 6500 being the upside target here. But between the numbers here, it is a little choppy, a little bumpy, right? Below 60, we're right here in this range. Below 6445 would be our pivot for a potential negative gamma trend, right? And the full complex. Specifically 6440 being a potential pivot point for us. So if you take a look at that, what's that yesterday? So that is yesterday's low is going to be a pivot point for us. All right. I think based on the data we're seeing, and we're opening right near that, right? So right now we're sitting at 642.35, right near this wall here. All right. So watch. When we open in weakness like this, I always say you got to watch how it responds directly at 64.40, but also watch how it tests the negative shelf here at 64.50. And then if it slips 6,400, this is an excellent short here to see this thing try to run towards our overnight low, okay, at that 64.15 mark. All right. Let's pull up the data. So 6440 is our downside target. We have some overhead shorts, but not an overwhelming amount of shorts above us, putting any super negative pressure. In fact, I would say this is one of those points where this is a pivot day, and that's where you're going to get the context today on the cover picture. I'm drawing a blank right now on the video. And that is that 6440, yesterday's low, is a pivot for us to really become into some level of really bearish day. Okay. So the target would be 6415, but would that put enough pressure on us as it gets stacked to really draw us towards 6400? And this is going to be a key level for us. So anything below that really can drive markets to turn sentiment. All right. So when we move above or below this is a sentiment mover when we see these key levels kind of notched out. Okay. The plan here today would be over the top of 6440. You're okay getting long, but you need to know that there's a potential rug pull here at 6450. You can see that transition turns into positive at 6455, but there are some overheads in here, right? So watch this potential area right here to be a dump zone. All right. So yes, you can get long over the top of 6440. You're looking for it to hold. You're being super tight about this. And you're saying you're trying to get this to drive up towards this zone here. At this point in this range, you need to be very cautious. All right. Very cautious. This is a lot of selling in this candle here. You need to be very cautious that this doesn't get torched, right? There's going to be likely a second entry after this sell here, okay? So watch this sell here for a potential rebuy down here, and this is going to either be your make or break to me, all right? And it may even make a new low and see if it wants to recover. You just have to kind of see how it responds towards 6440. If it cuts right through it, I'm all for shorting it and then using this as your stop to see if we get the extension. But right here, I am very much watching a bounce zone, right? This would be your most targeted area to make money this morning, right here. You're short here, and your stop is above your positive gamma on the first visit, okay? So your first visit, you're short here. Kind of depends on how it really responds to 6450, but you're looking to see to get short into this and then putting your stop over the top of your positive gamma support, see if it wants to drive it back down towards 6440. All right. If it snaps right through 6440, I'm all for holding on to this and trying to see if it can get our overnight low. All right. SPY has something similar. Let's just look at it for confluence here. You can see that over the top of 6440, which is virtually right here, right? We are in a positive gamma support here on SPY. So the idea that this is going to struggle right here is going to be a major pivot point. All right. So this absolutely, there's going to be a struggle had here. So you just need to know over the top of this, you can get long. And this is where the difference between or confluence kind of contradicts each other. SPY has us getting rejected back up here, right? This is our wall up here. SPX has us at a pivot point virtually right here, right? This is kind of where we're talking about watch that rejection. Okay, but the SPY has it a little bit higher. Knowing this, knowing that we're in positive support here on SPY, you need to go lightly on your short on that 6450 area because you're in bullish support here in SPY. Does that make sense? Knowing that that doesn't match up appropriately where there's a wall here on this, you need to know that that is, I would say, on the lower end scale of probability. Okay, it doesn't match up. So as far as confluence goes, you're limping into, you're not limping, but it's a lower end size scale at that 6450 area, 6450. And knowing that that's, like I said, just confluence here. This is a bullish area in SPY. If it rips right through there, you're going to have a double confluence, and it's most likely headed back up towards that resistance zone here if we could pop over the top of this. So that puts us right on par with where we're looking at 645 on SPY. So this is your next area of resistance into this zone right here. Okay, so you need to know that this is resistance here. If it pops over the top of this, it's most likely getting all the way up here. There's going to be your trend traders and stuff like that that are doing something like this. Sure. Okay. Sure. Doesn't matter. This is why this shit doesn't work. Okay. Because we have two things telling us virtually that we're going to get choked out at this range here. We had that high there, and then we have a gamma wall here. Now, if it breaks over the top, then so be it. That's where your confirmation is. But this is where people like, I won't say names, people on X that follow just these straight, trend trading type of deals where, oh, it broke out. This is where they get jammed up, right? And they're like, well, man, I was breaking out. It was a full-blown breakout. This is it. Okay, this is where we have the edge because we could trade the unseen. All right, we know that big money is stacked up against it right here, and we know that this could be, and that's where they'll be like, oh, it's just a confirmation check. Well, okay, you didn't know what you were doing. This is where people are selling right here, and you're looking to see if that this virtually rises based on the new data. That's what you're looking for. Anyways, we're not going to do a full thing on the pre-market prep about how I just think it's silly. All right. Let's go to Tesla. So yesterday we took a short right in here. Okay. And it exploded towards 350. I thought about averaging at 350, but we didn't. And we're seeing this get a little bit of a relative pullback on Tesla off our gamma wall here. So we're sitting at 345. What's to happen here, right? Based on the data that I saw this morning, we have gamma support all the way down at 335. Okay, so this is positive gamma support. So anywhere in this zone here is buy the dip. So I don't care what your TA is. This is buy the dip in this zone. So will we cash our play here at open? I don't think so. I think we're going to wait for a potential 335 visit as it has a lot of time on it. It's into next week. Looking for a potential pullback towards, say, that 330 or potentially even towards that 327.5. Just kind of depends on what the data shows us through the week, right? So let's pull up the data so you can see what I'm looking at. So full complex, major wall here at 350 here. This is the reason why we shorted this, is that we know there's a major wall here. We're looking for a response on it and we got it, right? So people are taking profits into this zone. Now we're looking for them to build up and say, hey, we're going to hold this. This is very much call dominated. This looks more so like an Nvidia play over the last month than it does anything else. Even on the weekly, very much positive here in this sense. Okay, but the idea is that we're looking to play between the lines and potentially that 340 zone is kind of where you can see that there's a little bit of weakness, but this is uncertainty here. What we do know is that there's support here at 335 and a potential downside target at 330. So what we're looking for is say, all right, hey, we're looking to target down here. We're looking to target this breakout, which is lines with 340. And then we're looking for 335 or 330 down in this range. Okay. That's what we're looking for. Will we see that before making a move? Like, let's say we open up and we drive towards 350. That's a possibility. But I still remain intact that we're going to find ourselves chopping here. Even if we raise above it, I think we'll come back to it and then find ourselves underneath it. And as long as we're underneath this, I'm fine for this to get a relative pullback towards this low or potentially even lower than that. I do not think that we'll get over the top of 350 as of right now, but if we do, it would be a major squeeze up towards, say, our daily levels, towards 357.71 and 368. Okay, so that is kind of where we'd be heading. So this is your 360 wall right here at 357.71. You'd watch that area, but chances are I think we would just continue squeezing if we got the breakout over 350, since it is so large. People would be forced to be buying. I think we have the opportunity to go to 360 or 370 before really seeing some type of consolidation or a pullback again. So we're watching 350 for our short to really be a stop. In a sense, we want to see some type of really high volume breakout above that before we're going to get out of that. Otherwise, we're going to look to see this thing try to play down towards 335 and 340. Can you reshort the 350 visit? Absolutely. But for me, on a secondary or really even like a third visit like this, we want to see it come here and we want to see a breakdown. Okay. We want to see a breakdown here before we're looking to re-enter the short here. So watch for maybe this high to be taken, retest 350, watch for it to make a subsequent lower high, and then get that continuation before I would look to re-enter for a move back down towards this range. Okay, so that is that on Tesla. And now Nvidia. Nvidia, if I could spell, Nvidia looks relatively bullish as normal. We have a really nice draw, starting to get a really nice draw up towards 200. There's some shorts in this at 212, 207. I imagine those are just spreads to the upside. Nothing that you need to worry about. You look on the weekly here. The expected move here is 10%. Okay. So if they position this near, say, 182.5, this is kind of where I think we're going to end up. 182.5 is kind of where we're going to end up prior to earnings. Okay. So keep that in mind as we kind of go in this range if you can find something that has decent pricing. I think as we enter into earnings, which are Wednesday, okay, post close, Wednesday post close, I think we'll be closing near 182.5, which is virtually yesterday's high, right? I think we'll be closing up in this range. At 10%, a 10% expected move gives us the upside towards, let me just show you the math here, right? If in case you're not really good at mental math here. This gives us up towards 200, and this gives us down towards 163, 164, in which case I think this would be bought up instantly for the rest of the week to put us back over 170. All right. So we have our gamma walls, right, at 185 and at 170. I think virtually, unless the upside gets hit and we start to really head up, you're going to see that 200 as we get into this range. This is really where we kind of are peaking out, right? They're not really forecasting this to really surpass 200 by any means. They're looking for it to realistically, in my opinion, kind of maintain or maybe even push up towards that 200 level, but that's it. So if you're playing something that doesn't make money, like let's say your premium, haven't looked at the premiums, but I can tell you that your 195 call is over $5. I'm just assuming is over $5 to really make it where after that, that is not going to be profitable, right? So you're going to get the IV dump, and then you're going to be $5 out of the money, and it's probably going to be worth a couple $100, and you're going to be scared and you're going to sell out. So that's just know what's coming here. There's really nothing on the week that stands like that. Now, when you start to get at 200, you can see the big wall comes here at 200, and nothing really speculative over the top of that is huge. 200 would be your upside here. So that's where I'm saying your 10% on both sides here is kind of what we're looking at. I look at this as more of like a no move on Nvidia than anything. I mean, maybe you get a spike one way or another, but you're staying contained right here. There's no doubt about it, in my opinion. Unless something really tragic happened. And I'll tell you, if they barely beat, it's probably going to be a bad thing. You might see a spike, but then they're going to start selling on this a little bit, start offloading a little bit. If it's a barely beat or just at expectations, everyone will be super pumped about that. Unless they're coming out with something crazy new, I don't really forecast this to really get that extension. People want to see this smashed, right? And you could tell in the past that this has, really done well. 10% beat on earnings here. Revenue was okay, but they did a really good job managing their back page, and it really started to push that up. When we got hit here is virtually where we were flat, right? So a barely beat here and a barely beat on revenue, and that's what really drove the price down here. Well, now we're far more extended up here. We could see that same type of move here if it's a barely beat. AI exhaustion, right? Demand starts slipping. That all is to come. Demand will start to slow down. There's no doubt about it. Everyone has to boost their systems, and once their systems are boosted, it's about updating, right? Okay, so this is where we're at. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. Realistically, on the intraday part of this, you're looking at 180 pivot. That's the last I'll go into earnings this week, but I wanted to cover over that a little bit so we could really have a really good basis on that. 185 is your wall here, so that remains the same. 180 is a pivot for me today, okay? So if you break below 180, which is yesterday's little sell down, I think that's more than likely that we find ourselves kind of selling down towards 177.5 and maybe even 175 today, Okay, there is a major pull towards 170. You can see it here. So as we show some weakness, potentially under 180, if we drop below this, I think you need to be watching the buyers being stepping up. Realistically, probably this whole candle here, 178 to 177. This little breakout candle here, right? Watch that whole zone to be a buyer zone. But if you get really realistically under 177.5, watch for this thing to try to drive down pricing towards 175 and potentially all the way back down to 170. Like I said, though, that is if we break below 180. I find it more likely, based on this data, where we're at, that we're going to bounce off 180 and try to drive up towards 185. I think, we've talked about this numerous times. You can see the amount of supply here, multiple visits up in this range, and it continues to be sold on. To me, that's just institutions taking some money. I think this is clear as day that this is institutions unloading some, and potentially looking to reposition. All right. Okay, so that's going to cover Nvidia here. If you're long over the top of 180, looking for this to press towards these highs, right? Yesterday's high, a potential target, right? But this little zone here, this little 182.5 zone has been critical, right? Every time it's popped over, it's came right back underneath it. So watch this 182.5 zone. It's kind of where I think, like I said, they're going to position this close into Wednesday, right in this 182.5, if they don't sell down early. All right. If they sell down early, that's a whole different ball game. If we have a conversation tomorrow that this thing sold under 180 and we start to see it drive down, that's going to be a whole different story on what we'd look for into earnings. But I think they're going to position it right here, and you're going to have a big nothing burger, and everyone's going to get burnt on IV. All right, so that's going to cover it for today. I wanted to talk about those at length. Today is a pivot point. If you guys are interested in doing, how we approach the market, the tools that we use, how we look at them, how we utilize them to make good risk versus reward decisions on the market, come take a look at us at rawstocksllc.com. That is rawstocksllc.com. You get a 7-day, $7 trial right now. It's a non-subscription base. You can join for $7 and you get your full access to what we do. After that, your options are to subscribe to the subscription or stay a free member in our Discord. But if you're not interested in that, just make sure you subscribe to our channels. Make sure you follow us on X, and we are always going to pump out content for our followers. So thanks so much. Make sure you like it, subscribe, and until tomorrow, we'll catch you later.